Hey everybody, welcome to interview number 8 with Wraith Games tonight. We've got Jay and Kristy.
Hi, how you doing?
Hello.
And today we're going to be starting with Inigo Montoya. What is that about in your About Us?
Oh, well, you've seen The Princess Bride, right?
Not in a couple of years.
In a couple of years? Well, the guy who's out to avenge his father is Inigo Montoya.
Yes.
So when we were going through and we were sort of designing our website, what we ended up doing was under each main header, we ended up putting kind of like a funny little phrase or whatever underneath it. So just sort of to get this whole quirky indie sort of vibe after we did our big rebrand.
Yeah, on the timeline section, the subtitle is "Mom's breaking out the baby pictures again."
Yeah, because it's always kind of embarrassing to sort of talk about where you came from and things, sort of the awkward years as an early studio.
Yeah, everyone has that golden spark, and then the first couple weeks, oh my god, we're gonna do it, and then just for a little bit until you actually get your feet under you.
Oh yeah, and it took us a little longer than it may have taken most people, because we've been going at it for a little over a decade now, which is kind of scary to think about.
I think that's actually pretty awesome, honestly.
Oh,
I mean, I'm still in the very first year of both the show and as a developer myself. So, or at least a developer in proper, where I'm not tinkering with it for 2 hours a week.
Oh yeah.
So you guys, as far as projects, have had physics, Jetpack Hero, working on Collapsus, I think. Is that right? Or is it physics that's the most recent one?
Collapsus? Yeah, Collapsus is kind of the big thing we're putting most of our focus in right now.
So why don't you guys do a pitch about it?
Okay, so Collapsus is just sort of a block-crunching puzzle game that centers around a unique resource management mechanic. Instead of all these independent, not independent, we're independent. Instead of all these games that are just sort of copying the Candy Crush formula, the Bejeweled formula, it's really something new. Instead of swapping the blocks, what you do is you have a finite number of blocks you're allowed to get rid of. Mm-hmm. And when you click on them, they're gone forever. And when that happens, the entire board then slides down to fill that hole, like something collapsing on itself. So by creating lines of 4 or more, like rows or columns, you end up getting some of those blocks back. But if all those blocks are gone, it's game over, just completely.
So it sounds like a combination of Tetris and Bejeweled or Candy Crush.
Yeah, kind of. It's we like to think we have a lot more in common with Puzzle League than with Candy Crush, but Bejeweled was definitely an influence. But we've been working on that since about 2006 in one form or another.
Yeah, you're just gonna be hard pressed to find any sort of color or gem matching puzzle game out there that isn't somehow influenced by Bejeweled.
Oh, absolutely.
The grandfather of the genre.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, even they were trying to sort of come up with something that just wasn't Tetris, because you had sort of all these Tetris clones flooding the market for a while. And so they came up with something new, and now everyone's just copying them.
Oh, what is that quote, man? This is why I need a producer. This is why I need someone to go, hey, what's that quote about? A certain amount of projects are stolen. How much of a project is copied and how much is actual inspiration. Someone look that up.
Here, I'm actually looking it up myself now. Oh, there are so many quotes about inspiration and copying. It's just so many.
I feel like most of them are probably misquotes and misappropriated ones.
That's
Or,
true.
what is it? Not misappropriated.
Misattributed?
Yes, thank you.
Well, you know what they say. 90% of quotes you find online are incorrect. Abraham Lincoln.
I thought Moses said it.
Yeah, it probably was Moses.
So I was looking up some more recent interviews to try to find, topics to talk to you guys about. Since y'all only have 3 current games. I mean, not that that's anything bad, since I've actually had guests with 0 games out. But one of the things that struck me was the accessibility interview. Let me see if I can find the unstoppablegamer.com. We're actually talking about accessibility. I started talking to Voyage Dreams about this because I'm partially colorblind myself. I have a red deficiency. And I was asking him about his game because he's got large world maps, pretty much. You guys are actually designing your stuff to be fully colorblind compatible, correct?
Yes, absolutely. We actually had one of our friends. He's sort of a team member, but sort of not really. It's
Guinea pig?
kind of unusual. Yes, he's definitely our guinea pig. He's almost our mascot. He comes in here and he just sort of makes jokes while we're in the middle of meetings. His name's Ryan. Well, we had him testing Collapsus, and this was before we even had shapes in the blocks at all. And he was playing it, kept dying over and over. Like, oh man, what's wrong? Do you need us to understand to explain it better to you? And he said, "Oh, I'm colorblind. I don't know how to do this at all. Like, I'm pretty badly colorblind." Like, "Oh, why didn't you say anything?" He's like, "I'm just clicking blocks. It's like, oh yeah, those are definitely supposed to be different colors." Oh, I couldn't really tell. So what we ended up doing shortly after that was we added the different shapes to the blocks. And it was really after some conversations we ended up having with Able Gamers, the gaming accessibility charity. They're actually the people who run the Unstoppable Gamers blog.
Yeah.
When we really started looking at accessibility even beyond that, so we started working with a mode within the option settings where you can select like whether you have like heterochromia or dyschromia or whatever, and you sort of select your color blindness, and it completely changes the color palette of the entire game to be where you can better see it with your particular.
It avoids that one color.
Well, it's not that it avoids that one color, because that's almost a misconception with how color blindness works. Mm-hmm. Especially when you get into the more severe color blindnesses, you'll have a lot of colors of multiple different types that sort of blend in together. And on top of that, you'll also have colors that are almost painful to see next to each other. People with severe color blindness often complain just in their everyday lives of really crippling headaches. So basically, there are certain color combinations that we see in our everyday lives, people who don't suffer from severe color blindness, that when they see them, they just sort of clash in such a way where it causes just crippling headaches. So one of the things that you do is there's actually a lot of research that's been done on this already. You pick color palettes that sort of help minimize that and help create readability of the colors themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And then on top of that, you look at different patternings that you can put. Like, for instance, I don't remember which color blindness it is in Collapsus, but the yellow blocks start getting a pinstripe pattern to sort of differentiate them from the green blocks a little better. And keep in mind, by the time you put this filter over it, they're not yellow and green anymore. I believe one of them is like magenta and the other's blue, like a shade of blue. But You still want this sort of different patterning on top of the blocks in order to help create more of a color readability on top of that.
Yeah, myself, I know I have a red color issue. I don't know if it's protonomy or what's the other one?
I am always terrible with names, especially of medical things, so I'm probably the worst person to ask.
I think it's protopania, but I'm probably wrong about that. But anyways, I don't know if it's that I have messed up cells in my eyes or if it's I'm lacking the red ones. But you guys obviously have gotten way deeper into this than I have, and I've actually done a little bit of research trying to understand this myself.
Well, the thing is that ultimately, a lot of this research has already been done for us. There's this thing where gaming companies, like larger gaming companies, will do this research and they'll release articles and things on, say, Kama Sutra. And there are other apps that help you sort of see games as people with different kinds of color blindness would see them. There's freely available articles online, and since the research is there, we kind of felt it was our duty to just sort of seek out the research, spend a few days really kind of munching on it a little bit, really like digesting it, and then implementing what we could.
That's awesome, man. I mean, as someone, thank you. As a gamer, genuinely thank you. I don't know how many people have said that, but this is something that's why I wanted to interview you guys, honestly.
We definitely appreciate it. Because really, you see a big budget game and it doesn't have a color blindness mode, or it doesn't have different controller accessibility for people who are physically handicapped, or you see things where you can't adjust the frame rate or the field of view for people who get easily who are easily
motion sickness.
Yes, motion sickness problems. So I took a breath there because I was like, wow, my brain is great. But you have these options that exist, and they're not difficult to implement. Is it a bottom line thing? Because it seems almost irresponsible to just not. If you have
it just makes marketing sense, If these things are easily, World of Warcraft has had this for a long time. 2 years ago, I picked it back up, and after digging around in the settings, just trying to get around all this, I happen to come across these color vision accessibility options in there. And maybe this is something you guys can look into a little bit more, but I could not figure out a way to be able to use it very well for me. No matter which setting I tried it, things would blend together in that game. And I haven't gotten to play Collapsus yet, unfortunately.
Well, Collapsus isn't actually out yet.
Unstoppable Gamer has a screenshot from which I guess you guys provide.
Actually, I think they might have dug up the screenshot themselves. The reason for this is we've actually been taking Collapsus to tons of different events over the last couple of years.
Okay.
And so it was, I can't remember. It was one of the Able Gamers guys. It was Brian. It was actually Brian from Able Gamers. We were at the Ohio Game Development Expo. We were sitting down there, and he just came up, and I had no clue who he was at all. Started playing the game, talking about how much he was enjoying it. And he's like, oh, yeah, by the way, I'm with Able Gamers. Noticed you do this whole color blindness thing. That's awesome. Would you mind if I brought our editor over to sort of talk to you, and maybe we could set up an interview or something? And so what ended up happening with that is he came over, and the two of them just played Collapsus, and we started talking about things. We really sort of hit it off. And then after the convention, we started chatting over Twitter private message and everything. And it just sort of happened. But we've been taking Collapsus pretty much everywhere for a while. It's a surprisingly big game. If you want me to tell you what's in it.
Yeah, I mean, aside from the general premise of the kind of the way I phrase it being Tetris and Vigil together and sort of,